Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. My name is John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And we're continuing our NFL previews with the AFC East. I usually like to do the NFC first, but with Dak Prescott injured or possibly injured, the odds for the NFC East have been taken down. So I'm going to put that off till next week just in case they come back up. So today we're going to talk about the AFC East and all the teams they're in. Interesting week in sports. A lot of sports this weekend. College football finally kicks off. I made a calendar error last week. I reviewed the college football games for this Saturday last week. So if you want to hear my take on those games, you can watch last week's episode, and I'll give you the breakdown of the games on the schedule tomorrow. So for today, I'm going to break down the games for the college football games for next Thursday, and then we'll do another episode next Friday. So you'll have a chance to hear my take on those games. But we also have CFL Week 4. We have Formula One back after a 3 or 4 week hiatus at Spa in Belgium. And we have NASCAR at Daytona with another restrictor plate race. And a last chance for a lot of drivers to make the playoffs because they need a win to get into the playoffs. So everybody's going to be going for a win in this race. It's going to be crazy. So that alone tells you there's going to be a lot of value in the betting odds. So before we do any of that, let's do what we always do and update my bankroll. And as you can see, we had a starting bankroll of $300. We picked Kevin Harvick to finish in the top 5 at Michigan. He did not, minus $10. And we had Chase Briscoe, his teammate, to finish in the top 20 at even odds. And he finished 11th. Very impressive, plus $10 to the bankroll. My 2 football plays are still pending. So if you do the math, that's absolutely zero change to the bankroll and making our bankroll $300 going forward. Dividing by 30 as we always do for my bankroll management purposes because I try to remain a selective bettor and not to bet too often as a beginner to intermediate style bettor. I divide by 30. That makes our bet size, once again, $10 going forward into the next week. So I noticed that last week I mentioned World Series future on the Reds, and they continue to go on a tear. They are 10 games behind the Dodgers for the number 1 wild card, but they're, I think, 2 or 3 games now up on the next opponent for the second wild card. So assuming they can win the wild card game, which is either going to be against the Dodgers or the Giants, who knows? But they're playing really good baseball right now. All right, let's go on to football and continue our NFL preview. And, of course, today we're talking about the AFC East, and that includes our local team, the Buffalo Bills, the New England Patriots, the New York Jets, and the Miami Dolphins. And this, to me, is, the Bills' year on paper. You have the Patriots in redefining mode. They're not, I wouldn't say rebuilding, but they're redefining. And then the Jets are definitely in rebuilding mode. And Miami is a team that some people are really big on and other people are not. And I'm probably in the not category, but we'll talk about that when we get to them. So let us start with the Buffalo Bills. And as you can see, I've taken these odds from Pinnacle Sports. I always shop around if you're going to bet on a futures odd, but these will give you an idea of the neighborhood of what the odds are for each team today. To win the division, the Bills are the favorites at minus 157. To win the AFC, I believe they're the second favorite behind Kansas City, plus 628. And then to win the Super Bowl, 11-18. I see 10-1. 11-1 is pretty good right now. They opened this summer. I didn't really pay attention to their odds until this summer, but they were 14-1. I got them at 13-1, and I most places that I check regularly, they're 10-1. But this team is stacked, and we'll go through. Of course, when I do my previews, I go through all the skill positions, so you can get some fantasy notes down and see who's, can cuff together, running backs, quarterbacks, etc. See who has potential to have some good seasons. So, of course, we've got Josh Allen as QB1, Mitch Trubisky as QB2. Trubisky started against the Bears last week in the preseason game and threw up 28 points pretty quickly. Very impressive. He seems to be a really good team guy. Chicago was really tough on him. He was drafted second overall, I believe. I mean, he was drafted higher than Josh Allen was drafted. He's in a good position to learn. But on the other hand, the Bills have a quality backup. They have a guy that's an NFL quarterback at backup. So I don't think they lose a lot. Obviously, Josh Allen is a potential MVP. But they don't lose, I think, their playoff status if Trubisky ends up starting for injury or whatever reason. So running back is the one spot on the skill positions that concerns me the most. Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, and Matt Breida comes in and takes over that Frank Gore role that they had the year or two previous. Breida's had some very good seasons. He was with the 49ers, and then I think he was with Miami. Zach Moss has impressed me, and Singletary, for being a smaller back, has had flashes of brilliance, but both of those players have had trouble staying healthy, and that's my concern. And if the running game falters, if there's significant depth injuries in the running game, then the defenses will totally disregard the run, which will force Josh Allen to run and maybe put him in injury-prone positions. Obviously, Josh Allen is one of the leading, if not the leading quarterback rusher in the league. So you expect him to take off from time to time. But it is not an impressive running back crew. It's adequate. It's proficient, but it's not an all-star crew compared to some other teams. At the wide receiver, you have an embarrassment of riches, I think. Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Gabe Davis, Cole Beasley. You also have Isaiah McKenzie. Now, Beasley and McKenzie are in COVID protocol because they are unvaccinated. I'm not getting into the political aspects I'm just saying that they're currently not available to practice. That is something to keep in mind down the road. The NFL has very strict COVID protocols. So if one of your fantasy players is not vaccinated, keep that in mind. Tight ends, you've got Dawson Knox, Jacob Hollister came over from Seattle, and Jay Kumaro, who Green Bay let go, and Aaron Rodgers was very upset about that. He was a big fan of Kumaro and keeping him, and he comes over to the Bills. He played college ball with Josh Allen at Wyoming. He's listed as a wide receiver in some places and a tight end in other places. So if you are considering him for your fantasy purposes, make sure he qualifies at the right position. The kicker's Tyler Bass, and he had a decent rookie season. Let's hope that he can continue to kick clutch kicks. I think there's probably, I think I'm about to sneeze. There's probably at least one game-winning kick for every starting NFL kicker. I'm pretty sure that, this is a 17-game season, that at least every one of these kickers on every team is going to have a game-tying or game-winning kick as time expires in the game. It just always seems, the way that the coaches manage the game these days, that's what just always seems to happen. So you hope that the kickers are good in pressure situations. Left guard Forrest Lamp is out with a calf injury. it sounds like that he might not be back. But the rest of the offensive line is completely healthy. The 4-3 defense returns completely healthy, and obviously they have elite status at linebacker and defensive back. And this is what I really want to talk about with the Bills. We know the Bills are the favorite in this division. We know the Bills are basically completely healthy going into the regular season. I know Stephon Diggs has missed some practice. You got the COVID guys, and you got the one offensive lineman that was probably not going to play. But you look at Kansas City in the West and the Bills in the East, which team is going to get the bye in the AFC? I looked at the schedule. The Bills have to go to Kansas City, I think, in Week 6, and they host the Buccaneers in Week 14. So you're going to get a really good idea. Those are the two favorites to win the Super Bowl. You're going to get a really good idea about where the Bills measure up to those two teams. That being said, the Chiefs' first 7-8 games, very difficult. They have a very, very tough schedule, including the Bills. If you look at their schedule, they have a bunch of winning teams, including the Ravens. I know they have the Chargers. The rest of them escape me. I don't have any of the schedules memorized, but I did look at the schedule before the show, and I would not be surprised if Kansas City had 2 or 3 losses going into Week 8, Week 9, because they start with the Browns, who almost beat them in the playoffs last year. So they could have 2 losses, maybe 3 losses by the time Week 10 rolls around. And if the Bills can beat the Chiefs heads up in Week 6, they should have the inside track to the bye, because in the AFC West, the Raiders, the Broncos, the Chargers have all improved in the offseason. And in the AFC East, in my opinion, the Dolphins have not improved. The Patriots have improved nominally, and the Jets are even if they have improved in the offseason, it's very unlikely that they're going to be super competitive this year. So that's really what it's going to come down to. That's going to be a huge game for the Bills this season, Week 6 at Kansas City. And, there have been some players, Edwards-Helaire, injuries can play a big part in this game, Mahomes is healthy, but some of their other skill players have had some nagging issues. So we'll see what happens. But the Bills are set up for a fantastic season. I think they're a great value at 12-1 or better to win the Super Bowl. I have a ticket on them to win. I have a future on them to win the Super Bowl. So think of it what you will. It's nice to be a fan of a team that actually has a shot. Let's move on to the Patriots. To win the division, they're the second favorite at plus 281. To win the AFC, about 10-1. And to win the Super Bowl, about 27.5 to 1. You've got Cam Newton and Mac Jones, a rookie from Alabama. Newton is in COVID protocol. I think it's likely that Mac Jones will start week 1, depending on the amount of reps he gets for the rest of training camp, the rest of preseason. And for running backs, you've got Damian Harris and James White, and Sony Michel has been traded to the Rams. So it's less of a 3-headed monster, more of a 2-headed monster. Expect James White to get more of the pass-catching duties. And then in the wide receiver, you got Nelson Aguilar, the veteran, N'Keal Harry, Jacoby Myers, and Bourne as your fourth option. And then as the tight ends, you've got Hunter Henry, formerly of San Diego Chargers, and Jonnu Smith, formerly of the Titans. Nick Folk is the kicker. He's been around. You've got a healthy, balanced offensive line. There's been some turnover there since the Tom Brady days. So you've got 2 of the 4 starting linebackers may miss the entire season. One of them is already confirmed out for the season with an ACL. The other one is missing significant time. But does this team have a leader? Both sides are missing identity. And this team is being remade. It's not being rebuilt. It's being remade into an image. Now, last year it was Cam Newton, and it seemed like as the season went by, he ran less and less, and he was concentrating on the short passing game. He was trying to make himself into Tom Brady. He was throwing these short, quick routes, these 8 to 10-yard routes, and only running when he absolutely had to, when the game was on the line. He had mixed success. They were competitive with the Bills in their second meeting. I think they only lost that game by 3 points. And I think the team finished about 8-8. I would be surprised to see New England in a playoff spot. I mean, they would obviously have to sweep the Dolphins and the Jets to pad their record, because they have some tough games on their schedule. So this team, Mac Jones has performed much better in the preseason than Cam Newton has. Of course, Cam Newton probably wasn't feeling 100%. If you watch the show with regularity, you know how I feel about rookie quarterbacks. Very few perform consistently. You know, even the all-time greats like Marino, Elway, etc. Had bad. Peyton Manning had bad rookie seasons. John Elway. So I find it very difficult, even in today's game, where players are learning pro-style offenses in college, that they are prepared to come in and lead a team to a playoff spot. It does happen from time to time, but it's very rare. So if Mac Jones ends up being QB1, I certainly expect some growing pains with this team. And, of course, they'll have to stay healthy for this to happen. And if Cam Newton if they can't protect him and he can't escape anymore due to his age, they will probably just use the season as extended training camp for Mac Jones, because it seems like they believe in him. Jarrett Stidham is still the third quarterback. It seems like they have kind of given up on him as a future starter. We'll see what happens. Let's move on to the New York Jets. And to win division, about 27-1. That's that territory where I say, if somebody's 30-1 to win the division, it's almost worth it to put some pizza money on it. Just because, stranger things have happened. Washington won the division last year at 30-1. To win the AFC, 67 and change to 1. To win the Super Bowl, just a few ticks under 200-1. At quarterback, you've got Zach Wilson and James Morgan. I have to admit, I just don't know much at all about James Morgan, but he's who's going to play if Zach Wilson gets hurt. So you should know that. Zach Wilson, of course, a draft pick from BYU. He has impressed the press. The coaches rave about him. He seems to be a great teammate. He seems to be at a high level of football intelligence. However, one player does not a team make, unfortunately. And this kind of also applies to the Dolphins, which we'll talk about in a minute. But, again, rookie quarterback growing pains. I see that happening. Hopefully he doesn't see ghosts like Sam Darnold did. Tevin Coleman and Michael Carter are the running backs. Of course, Tevin Coleman was with the 49ers. Now we got Corey Davis, Mims, Elijah Moore, and Jamison Crowder as your wide receivers. And that's an adequate crew. Tyler Kroft is your tight end, and it didn't seem like any of the depth tight ends really had a lot of pass catching experience. Not to say that there isn't a good receiver in that group, but nobody that I expect to see a significant part of the passing game. Chris Najjar is the kicker, and the left side of the offensive line retired. The left guard and the left tackle are on the leave list, the retirement list. And Mekhi Becton is expected to return in time for week 1, but other than him, there is nobody on the roster on the left side of the offensive line, which, of course, is the blind side for a right-handed quarterback. 4-3 defense with a top 3 edge rushers on injured reserve. That is not good news. Don't know how many of them might be back for week 1. There's a lot of depth at defensive back. Very low expectations for this team. Robert Saleh is the former defensive coordinator in San Francisco. Expect him to be a ball control coach. So San Francisco was a team that was always run first, used a lot of fullback sets, a lot of short, like a lot of play action to the tight end, and then eventually opened up the passing game in the second half. So if this team is going to try to establish run and try to create turnovers on defense, they're a team that's going to you can't see this team wanting to go out and score a bunch of points and run away from their opponents because it's not going to happen. This is a team that's going to want to win 17-10 games. And it's going to be tough. As a Bills fan, I can tell you the Bills had a team like that for many, many years, and you were losing lots of games 14-20. You're losing lots of games 13-17. It's very frustrating. It's going to be a tough year for the Jets. And hopefully, they found their quarterback that they can build around. But I would definitely, I think in today's NFL, the running back is the easiest replaceable player. You can get, I don't want to say you can get one off the street, but you could pretty much get one off the street. Other skill positions like offensive linemen, tight ends, I think are way more valuable as draft assets. And you want to get those players that you can build around. So, you got to find some jumbos for Zach Wilson, and then expect Saleh to get the defense in shape. And I think the Jets will, that would be their goal, is to have their scoring defense improve tremendously. And if they don't give the ball away too much, if they win the turnover battle, this is a team that could be, 6-11, 7-10, 8-9. But if they lose a turnover battle, and they give their defense bad field position, it's kind of like when Jameis Winston was with the Bucs. He always gave his team bad field position, and they lost games, by a lot, because even though their defense was very good. So then finally we got Miami, and did I lose my Miami card? I lost my Miami card. All right, so we're going to have to go by memory here. Let me pull up the Miami depth chart. So, depth chart. Obviously, it's Tua at quarterback. And Jacoby Brissett is the backup. We've got Myles Gaskin and Salvon Ahmed at running back. Malcolm Brown is the third running back. And wide receiver Devontae Parker. Will Fuller is coming back from a PED suspension, and he'll be ready week 2. And Jalen Waddle and Jakeem Grant round out the wide receivers. And Mike Gesicki at tight end. And I just have to say what a tremendous tight end he is. He's so underrated. If you're looking for a value tight end, he gets so many red zone looks. Assuming Tua is the quarterback, there's a lot of believers out there, and I'm just not one of them. We'll talk more about that in a second. The kicker is Jason Sanders, and what a job that must be to be the place kicker in Miami. You have 1 week in Buffalo every year, every December, but other than that, you get to sit on the sideline and enjoy the fine weather in Miami. The offensive line returns completely healthy. And on the defensive side of the ball, everybody is currently healthy. There is very little depth at nose tackle. It's a 3-4-D, inside tackle, and at strong safety as we listen to the train go by. So my analysis for Miami is this glass half empty or half full? If you're a believer in Tua, you got to think it's half full. You've got your quarterback. You've got some new blood at running back. You got your offensive line. You basically got all your linemen returning and linebackers returning healthy. You got to feel really good about the team. However, I just don't feel that way. Tua has a lengthy injury history. I don't think that he's going to be able to run like he did in college. Obviously, we're looking at, I think his third season now, and it's his show. I do understand there was a little dissension in the locker room last year with Fitzpatrick, and hopefully that's all in the past, and maybe he's a great teammate. I don't know. But if he can put together a healthy season, 16-game, 17-game season, with some consistency, then I will jump on that bandwagon. But right now, I don't believe that Tua is a playoff-level quarterback. There are some instances where quarterbacks make the playoffs that probably didn't deserve to. Washington at 6-10 or whatever they were last year is a prime example of, a team that backed into the playoffs. Somebody had to go. But let's see if he can earn his spot. That team had a good start with Fitzpatrick, and then he basically ended up on the bench in the second half of the season. So I'm sorry I lost my my Miami card, but so I don't have the odds for you at the moment. I'm not going to take the time to look them up. So let's move on to so let me finish with the AFC East. It's the Bills to lose. I think everybody in the AFC got slightly better, like one position better, but not enough to compete with the Bills. It's the Bills' division to lose. They go 6-0 into the division. They split with Tampa Bay and Kansas City, but if they beat Kansas City, that's more important for the bye. They're going to be in a position. If they make Kansas City come to Buffalo with fans, that's going to be a game changer. It's going to be very difficult for Kansas City to play there. And that makes Buffalo really the Super Bowl favorite in the AFC if that happens. And I think it might. All right, let's go on to the weekend in sports. We're going to start with motorsports. And the Belgian Grand Prix is this weekend, and Spa is the course in Belgium. And Lewis Hamilton has won this race 4 times, and Mercedes won the last one in 2020, and Ferrari won the 2 before that. But the last 6 races, Mercedes has won 4 times, Ferrari has won 2. Max Verstappen has never won this race. So the odds before practice, I checked them Wednesday night, and it was Max Verstappen minus 110 and Lewis Hamilton plus 110. Basically, those odds are awful for betting. They're probably pretty accurate. However, the odds are off the board now because Max Verstappen crashed in the first practice at Spa. So there are no odds currently for this race, but I would expect those odds at least to be reversed, and maybe Hamilton going down to like minus 150 and Verstappen going up to plus 200 or something like that. One of the issues is you only get 3 engines for your team for the season in Formula One. And Max has crashed now 2 or 3 times. And I haven't seen the crash that happened today, so I don't know how serious it is. But if he injured another engine, they're down to like basically 1 clean engine for the rest of the year. And if you're familiar with how racing engines work, they don't last that long. You need 3 engines to get through the year at least. So this could be very bad news for him. So I don't know if they can put him in another car and put his teammate in that car. I don't know if they're allowed to do that, but it doesn't seem like at the moment it's worth betting on this race. However, We have Daytona race this weekend. It's Coca-Cola Zero 400 at Daytona, formerly known as the Firecracker 400, formerly known as the Pepsi 400, blah, blah, blah. Restrictor plate race, the starting position does not matter. This is where you go to put your gas to the floor and you ride around the track for 260 laps. And because the cars are so even, it's all about drafting and working with another car. And it's a bettor's paradise because the odds are inflated for everybody. Because basically any car can win the race. Has to avoid, there's usually at least one big wreck. You have to avoid the big wreck and get near the front at the end of the race, and you have a shot at winning. And you can see I probably have about half the field listed here, and the favorite is Denny Hamlin at plus 750. And before I go through all these odds, I just want to say that the way the NASCAR playoff system works, it's the top 16 plus anybody that won a race. So if they have 16 different winners of races, that's, those 16 are in. If they have 18 different winners of races, those 18 are in. If they have 11 different winners of races, those 11 are in, plus the 5 top point getters. Well, as of right now, there's, I think, 14 different winners. Allmendinger won the last road race, but he is not considered a points racer in the series, so his win didn't count for the playoffs. So there are currently 2 point spots left to get in. So if somebody is not in the top 16, either by win or by points, they're going to have to win this race to get into the playoffs. So every driver that is not in a championship, in a playoff position right now, is going to go for the win this weekend. And that means that a lot of cars are going to take a lot of chances, and there's probably going to be a lot of wrecks. So cars that race for points are going to probably do really well. So you can see Denny Hamlin is the favorite, who has not won this year, but he's also won 3 Daytona 500s, plus 750. Kyle Larson, 11-1. Chase Elliott, William Byron, Logano, 12-1. Blaney, 13-1. Austin Dillon, 15-1. Keselowski and Kyle Busch, 16-1. Bowman, 18-1. Eric Amarola, Kevin Harvick, Christopher Bell, 20-1. Matt DiBenedetto, who's in the Wood Brothers, 21, and doesn't have a ride for next season currently, is probably going to want to win this race to help him get another ride. And they're part of the Penske team unofficially. And then Ricky Stenhouse, 22-1. Martin Truex, who is an excellent racer, restrictor plate racer, 25-1. Tyler Reddick, 30-1. McDowell, who won the Daytona 500 in February, 35-1. I think he was about 35-1 to win that race. And then these cars are all 40-1, and I think that they're going to be competitive. I don't know if they're going to win, but Chris Buescher, Cole Custer, Daniel Suarez, Chase Briscoe, all 40-1. Great odds. You can pick your favorite and root for them. Harvick has not won a race this year, but if a former winner wins, Harvick is in the playoff, because I think Hamlin and Harvick are the 2 drivers that have the points to get in if there's only 14 different race winners. So I'm not a big fan of the playoff system, but I'm a big fan of getting into the playoffs. I think that's exciting. But once the playoffs start, it's kind of boring. But this will be a fun race to wager and to watch. There will be some spectacular crashes, I'm sure. I hope nobody gets hurt. So let's go on to football. And as you know, I covered the Saturday games last week because I couldn't read a calendar. So there's 5 games on Saturday, and you can watch last week's episode. Very quickly, Temple at Rutgers, minus 14 and 51. That game is lined pretty accurately. Boise State at Central Florida, minus 669. I have Boise State as a 3-point dog. If that got to 7, I think I would like Boise State. I think that's under. East Carolina at Appalachian State, minus 10.5, 58.5. I like Appalachian State at 10 or less, but at 10.5, I think that's a pass. South Florida at NC State, minus 18, 60 points. I have that at about 20. So it's lined pretty close. I don't really think there's much value there. Ohio State at Minnesota, minus 13.5, 65. If you can get that less than 14 at 13.5, I'm all over Ohio State here. If you believe, there's a lot of people that believe that they're the preseason number one, although Alabama gets all the votes. This is a good opening test for them. So I know that the money line opened at about minus 515, and now it's like minus 800 almost. So I think if it stays under 14, I think that's a good wager. And Bowling Green at Tennessee, minus 34, 58.5. I have Bowling Green at like 23-point dog, so that's 11 points. That's a lot. But once again, with college, you get into the second string. How much playing time are they going to get in the regular season? They want to score. If they're at home, they want to score for their girlfriend, for their family. It's really tough to gauge in college. I often stray from these high spread games. So I don't my model says take Bowling Green in the points. I would definitely want to get the 35. But I really consider that a pass. So, and then finally we got CFL. Now CFL had a Thursday game, which they canceled. It was the most quiet cancellation for a football or sporting event I've ever seen in my life. 12 Edmonton players tested positive for COVID. And they didn't announce the cancellation until Thursday afternoon. The game was supposed to be at 7:30 last night. And I don't know what to make of this. I mean, obviously, I'm glad they didn't play the game to risk exposure to other players. I mean, that's important. But I think for a team that's coming back for a league that's coming back from taking a season off, that this is a bad precedent to set. They need to be more proactive about their PR, and it could be a disaster going forward. We do have 3 other games. Tonight we've got the Alouettes hosting the Tiger Cats. Alouettes opened as a pick, and now it's Alouettes plus 2.5. It's a parity league, and the Tiger Cats lost their first 2 games, but I do think the Alouettes are a better team, and they're a home team here, and it's their home opener, and I think they're going to be pumped. And I like the Alouettes here. At 3, I like the plus 3 if it gets to 3, but otherwise I take the money line. BC Lions at the Ottawa Red Blacks. Red Blacks are plus 4.5 at home, 43.5. The Red Blacks defense is decent. They're a run-first team. Their quarterback has no mobility. That's going to be a problem going forward. They need to score points. BC Lions can score points. And I think their defense is actually adequate. That total is really low, but I don't like it. And the Stampeders at the Blue Bombers, minus 5.5, 44. The Stampeders, their first 2 games they lost with Bo Levi Mitchell, and it turns out he was playing with a broken leg that nobody knew about. And they started a rookie last week, and he impressed, and his name escapes me. It's number 12. And he did very well. And I know this might not be a win for the Stamps this week, but I love the over here. I already got it at 43.5, and now it's up to 44. The Bombers can score points, and the Stamps defense leaves a little something to be desired. But the Stamps, I think, can score points on the Bombers. Like, I can see them scoring 17, 20 points, and that means the Bombers only need to score 24 points, which I think they can do. So I like the over in this game. And that's how I feel about the games this week. So now that we've gone over everything, let's wrap it up with my picks. And, of course, I've got a pending pick on New Mexico State plus 9. That's actually at plus 10 now. I like that at plus 10, of course. I don't think I'm going to put another unit on it. I have a half unit pending on UConn plus 27.5. And I'm taking the Alouettes money line on Friday at plus 115. I'm going to take Ohio State minus 13.5 at Minnesota next Thursday. And then for the NASCAR race, I've got 4 plays, so I'm really ramping up my bets, which I don't usually do. I got Denny Hamlin to win at plus 750, Martin Truex to win at plus 2,500, I've got Chris Buescher as a top 10 at plus 160 and Corey LaJoie as a top 10 at plus 280. So hopefully that Truex win will be a nice big winner and I can really jump my bankroll going into the NFL season. So that's the show for today. Thank you for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let's start enjoying some college football. Let's get some winners. And I will see you again for one more NFL preview before we start the regular season. So let me play the outro music for you. And let's have a good weekend, everybody. Take care.